I'm going to be answering question 2 of the evaluation. How do the elements of your production work together to create a sense of branding? So I think I'm going to start off by talking about how all 3 of my products have worked together, and then I'm going to point out a few different things after that. So first of all, I think that one of the main things from all 3 of my projects is that there is a sense of grittiness within all of the products. If that's from like the lighting to the clothing to like the actual texture of the images. So for example, in my digipack, I know that for the front cover, I've made it quite, I put a layer and I put an opacity fade on it as well, so then like you can see a double thing on it, and then I adjusted the colour and everything, but then that whole double layer gave it a bit of grittiness just because of the textures and tones of somebody's skin, and when you slightly move it to the side, obviously it's going to look a little bit more exaggerated. I kind of like this idea, and like even in my music video itself, I did do this quite a few times. For example, when I was in the cafe, I tried to make sure that all of the videos sort of did a pan or a truck shot, but then I'd make sure that all of the focus pulls were really faint as well, so it would be like completely little bubbles and specks of nothing, and then it would eventually go to like a really blurry figure, but it would still have a lot of grit to it, so it's not a perfect image, like a really high quality image. You could also take the word gritty as in like the content. So for example, in the tunnel scene, that's quite down, dirty and like rough in a way. Yeah, so I think that all 3 of my products have really got that grittiness in them. I feel as though in all 3 of my products as well, I do have quite a strong theme or a strong dark theme throughout them. So in my music video, for example, I do make sure that all of my studio shots are either completely black with just like one light in the background to create like a silhouette and catch a few bits of his leather jacket, or I've done it so then it's like a half cast of the face, or on the other one it was really low lighting, but then I had a few spotlights pointing up at the pictures in my darkroom, which really stood out, which came out quite well, to be fair. Then for my digipack, 3 out of the 4 images of my artists are black and white, although one of them does have the red pictures in them. It's still the majority of it is black and white. I don't have an issue with this, as I do have the whole unsaturated areas within my music video, and I feel as though that bit links. I just feel as though it's showing the whole darker side to the video, and that it's not all happiness. And then in my website as well, I feel as though the vibe, although it's meant to be mainly for the audience's pleasure or the fans' pleasure, I feel as though I've still been able to get some of that grittiness, that darkness within my images or just the whole layout. Granted, I did choose a colour scheme of red mainly for that one, but that still links in with my music video and my digipack as well. Yeah. That goes on to my next point of the red and the black and the white contrasting each other quite nicely, and how I've made sure that I've got this throughout all 3 of my projects. Again, it's just a really nice way to show that all of my products are together and they're part of the same branding. Yeah. Okay, and finally, I think I want to talk about my font choice, especially on my digipack, if I'm honest. I feel as though the whole ransom thing, the ransom note, although I didn't include it in my video, the reason for this was that I knew that I'd have to introduce like the father figure in props narrative theory, and I'm not sure that I could have created another person within the 3-minute limit of my song. I think it would have overcomplicated things, and I wouldn't have been able to come to a conclusion and like wrap it up nicely without rushing it. That's why I didn't include it, but I thought that it would still tie in with the whole story, and it sort of linked quite well. So I did like that area, to be fair. So that sort of shows that you've got to use parts of my digipack in my music video to like link them together, which is kind of nice. So when it came to helping the brand identity, I think that the audience is able to associate the darker side of the products. Again, this is what I was talking about before briefly with the whole black and white and red colour scheme, and the fact that I've got a lot of the same sort of images. So on my digipack, I have the female and male model both slightly looking inwards towards my fire picture, which is definitely a more darker image, especially how they're facing the fire. Although the fire is, again, it's got connotations of being quite dark and twisted, and I've incorporated that through my music video as well. So I've made sure again that all of the colour schemes are quite close together, with the whole desaturated against the really vibrant red. I feel as though this is a really good way to express the different emotions and like a mental state, compared to the normal everyday life which everybody else sees. I feel as though this is a pretty good way of expressing that. So another thing which really helped to create a sense of branding for me was the fact that my male artist, no matter where he was always wearing that iconic leather jacket. This was partly to help my audience establish that this is the same product no matter what the project is, or the product, sorry. It also, I loved the way which the light hit the leather jacket, and I wanted to incorporate it more than just in one area. So I felt as though this was a really strong concept, and I didn't want to just have it in one area. However, for my female actress, I did try and vary up what she was wearing a little bit. I got a few different outfits in there. I think it's worked pretty well, to be fair. I was thinking about the colour scheme as well and what she was wearing, and if I did desaturate the image, what would it come out as, like the undertones of the picture and everything, and if that would match with the sort of vibe I've got going. So yeah. As I started to mention before, the use of the fire creates an atmosphere, which is quite interesting. Yeah, because it definitely has connotations of being quite dangerous and sinister, and it can do a lot of damage if you're not careful with it. And the fact that I open up with fire and then I end with fire is like a nice little loop together. It finishes it off nicely. When it came to the whole movements and actions of my artists and actors, the way which they held themselves and the expressions, I feel as though they did these really well, and it did help to express the different emotions across all three of my products, just so then you weren't getting mixed messages from one product to the next. It was very consistent, to be fair. So when it came to the semiotics of my project, I feel as though I decided that I was going to incorporate some of the images from Darkroom for my digipack and website. I did start to talk about this before, as the audience might recognise some of the images, help them to visualise, and see that the products are connected, basically. It's just like a helpful hint. Plus, it did break up the whole black and white situation of the photos because there was a lot going on, to be fair. And it was just a good, easy way to get around that. There were a few times that I used a whole scene. For example, I tried the tunnel in the front of my digipack, but I thought that it gave too much away of the whole story, just because I intentionally only brought it in towards the very end, like the build-up part of my song. So I feel as though if it was on the front of my digipack, it would sort of destroy that whole build-up which I created. I also tried it with the darkroom set, and again I did feel as though it was sort of ruining the whole build-up, although I have got that consistently throughout my video. I did decide to use the same image for the front of my digipack and website. This just allows the audience to establish a relationship between my products and that they can clearly see that at this time the band is focused on this album in particular. And they want to make sure that everybody knows that they are connected. So yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so that is the summary for question 2. How do the elements of your product work together to create a sense of branding?